Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Dragons of Etchinstone from Chip Theory Games, which is different than the last time I reviewed it, because last time it wasn't from Chip Theory Games. It was designed by Joe Klipfel. Both times it's designed by Joe Klipfel, but last time it was self-published. Chip Theory Games has taken this on. They've updated some of the art and all that stuff. I was gonna say art and components, but I guess the components are updated because they're going to be Chip Theory plastic cards and all of that, like the very cool, highly produced cards. So art and components updated, as well as expansions being introduced. So with those two things, I'm going to be giving you my semi-revised thoughts on the game. But that said, before we dive into it, this is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. That said, Dragons of Etchinstone, I will loosely show you how to play the game. If you want, you can check out a full playthrough I did with this set over here under my live videos on the channel. Feel free to check that out. You can check out my original review. I'll link to both of those videos down below. So I'm going to give you a very loose overview of how the game plays, and then I'll give you my kind of updated thoughts based on my experience with this new version of the game and the Northvale expansion. The Siege expansion I don't have access to yet, so I can't give you my thoughts on that. This is base game plus Northvale. So with that, let's tell you how to play the game. The basic idea is you have a hand of cards, you're going on a journey across 4 phases before you go ahead and face off against the final dragon. Your job is to power up your cards so that when you face that final dragon, you actually have a chance of winning. Because all your cards come in 4 levels. You have basically your starting level over here, which is going to be a 2, the level it can be reduced to upon taking damage, which is a 1, then you have the 3 on the other side over here, as well as the 4. Whenever you upgrade a card, you are bumping up its stats. That's going to be incredibly important because when you face off against the final dragon, if you have a bunch of 2s and 1s in your hand, you're going to die. You're going to want a good mix of having a whole lot of 4s, a few 3s, maybe a 2 left over. That's going to be your best odds at actually facing off against this dragon. To that end, let's talk about what a general sequence looks like, because general sequence is going to be you have your hand of cards. We're going to deal out a hand of cards from my starting cards over here. Then we're going to have our journey card, which is going to go on top over here. We have region 1, and region 1 we're going to slide it down, and we actually have an expansion card here, but we'll tell you more about those soon. But ignoring all the other symbols, over here on the expansion card, this says we're fighting against enemy 3. Each card tells you which enemy it's fighting against, or which journey you're going on. You see, these region cards have journeys and enemies, and depending on what card you slide down behind it, you're going to be facing off against something different. But with that, if you're facing off against enemy 3, I have a certain amount of damage I need to do. They have an initiative, and if they are faster than us, they're going to deal early blood to us, or they're going to do extra combat damage to us. Then they have their element color as well, how much damage they deal, and what shield they have against that element color if you're using that. From there, you're going to assemble a hand of 3 cards. Yes, you have 4. You're going to be putting together 3 of these cards, one as your main spell card effectively, one as your element, and one as your boost card. So for example, if I'm trying to deal 12 damage, that's going to be very hard with a starting hand because I can get at most 9 journey on this card, and we're not doing a journey. On these cards over here, I can get 5 damage over here, so that's going to be a possibility. So for example, I can boost this card over here using a purple card to produce 5 damage. The problem is I can't get to 12 no matter what happens. Even with a boost value, because I mentioned there's 3 cards, and your third card is going to provide a boost value either to the speed of your card or alternatively to the damage value or journey value. In this case, the maximum value we can get is 7, which is not 12. I'm very good at math. 7 is not 12. But that means I can't kill this enemy. But I still can defeat it. I'm just going to take damage on the way out. As long as you do at least half their damage to them, you can still defeat it, getting the experience points. It just means that they're dealing you some parting damage, which isn't great. You'll have to demote your cards. To that end over here, with this particular enemy, we're going to go ahead and face off. We're using a purple card, which means we can ignore that little red shield over there, because even though our main card is red, the boost element color over here is purple. So we can ignore that. We're going to go ahead and boost it with one of these. So we'll add this as our boost element down over here. So we're adding our 2. And then we have, that's going to be our hand of cards. It's going to be our leftover. We are doing a combined total of 5 plus 2 for a total of 7 damage to this card. And we also are going earlier than them in turn order because of our element card over there, our element / initiative. That means we're going early in turn order, so it won't deal its main damage to us. It's going to give us 7 experience points. We can use those 7 experience points, for example, to go ahead and boost these 2 cards. We're going to turn this 2 to a 3 over here, and this 4 to a 3 as well. Looking down over here on these numbers, that's the cost to pay. But we also have to take 2 damage. So I'm going to have to deal that 2 damage to some cards. You can't upgrade and deal damage to the same card. So I'm going to deal damage to, let's say, this card over here, reducing it to a 1. That's the example of a typical encounter. I'm going to get rid of these cards, pull out new cards, and then continue going going through this until I've gone through the entire deck. Then we'll go to region 2, then region 3, then region 4. You're progressively going through an arc of taking damage while powering up your cards in order to hopefully end up at the dragon at the end of 4 regions, hopefully powered up and ready to take it down. That's basically how you play Dragons of Etchinstone. If you want to see a full gameplay of it, like I said already, I'll have that link down below so you can check that out. If you want to see a full rules video done by Chip Theory Games, if I remember, I'll link to that as well. It's a great rules video, really gives you a good idea of how to play. And if you want to see my original thoughts, I'll link to that down below. So 3 other videos, homework assignments for you to go ahead and look at them. So, I have played through this new content over here several times. I have played through the expansion several times, and now, well, the one expansion I have, Northvale, and to that end, I can give you my kind of updated thoughts. I like Dragons of Etchinstone, and this is not going to follow my usual format of what I like, don't like, and see what's not liking. Because I covered this already, I don't want to hit the exact same notes, so I'm just going to kind of give you my my thoughts on the game. I like the game, but there are some issues with it. Some issues that have been improved since the original since the original print and play I played, and some of which are still present. So overall, Dragons of Etchinstone represents a fun puzzle to go through in your hand where you're trying to combine cards in a certain way in order to go ahead and power up your cards, and then go to the next card, onwards and so forth. There is one important aspect we didn't talk about where sometimes you have the ability to kind of discard a card if you don't want to face off against a journey, and you have to discard a card from your hand to do so as well. It's called diverting. The problem with that is you lose cards and you don't get to upgrade yourself. The upside is sometimes you're facing off against an encounter you really can't handle, so that's going to be one of the decision points you make. The reason I bring that up as a decision point you make is because I do find that Dragons of Etchinstone, to quote somebody who commented on my gameplay video, they said that they get the feeling that the game kind of plays itself. And to a certain extent, there is truth to that argument, or at least in my experience with the game, there's truth to that argument. Meaning, whenever you have a decision space around a game, there's the question of how much are you making the optimal... When you make the optimal decision, was that a hard process to come to? Or was that a very easy process to come to? And the main way I would determine that is if you give 10 people the exact same configuration of a specific game situation, how many of those 10 people are going to end up in the exact same configuration? I'd be fascinated to see that play out in Dragons of Etchinstone. I'd be fascinated if you gave people the exact same configuration, how often their opinions would diverge. Because I do think there's room for divergence. I also think sometimes the divergence doesn't necessarily matter significantly. Like if you have a boost value of 2 and there's 2 cards, if you use one or the other, is that meaningfully different? I like the process of going through this. I have fun. Like every time I play it, I have fun upgrading my cards. It is an experience where you get to the end of it and you do feel both challenged and rewarded. Like whenever I play the game, I feel like I had to work to earn that victory. And then I get the victory and it feels fun too. Like I haven't yet lost, I don't remember the last time around, but this time around, I haven't yet lost against any of the dragons, but I've come so close every single time that I really felt like I earned it. But I'm also saying that I don't know how much decision space there is around every decision you're making. Now, there are decisions, for sure. The diverting, I brought that up for a reason. If you're faced with a really bad situation, diverting is going to matter. The decision as far as which cards you upgrade could matter, but I find I'm rarely looking at like the exact details of a card as far as how to augment my hand. Most of the time, if I have a set of cards, I know how to pair it up in a way that makes the most sense. But I think mentally I did have to work to get there, which is why it still feels rewarding. I mean, I guess I'm saying that if you ask me what's higher, 4 or 6, I'll say 6. I didn't work to get there, I just know that. But I almost feel like I'm being given a mathematical equation where anyone who knows math will achieve the same end result, but it was still a challenge to exactly piece it all together, which is why I feel rewarded. Hopefully this makes sense, because effectively, to go back to that commenter, I do feel to a certain extent, maybe 70, 75, 80% maybe, I do feel the game plays itself. But I still feel like I have fun in that process because I have to challenge my way to that and enjoy that. So overall, on the good side, it's a challenging experience that I feel rewarded when I play through it, and I enjoy that experience, and it all lets me do this in the palm of my hand. Like, I'll use a table when I have it, but you could play this entire game holding it exclusively in your hand. By the way, that's a big upgrade from the original. The way the card formatting is, where you have all the numbers on the side instead of the top and bottom, really makes a hand of cards so much easier to actually look at any given point, that it's a much better experience in my opinion. I also like the color scheme a bit more, it pops a bit more, and obviously I'm sure that the Chip Theory, these aren't the final production plastic cards, but I'm sure I'll love those cards because Chip Theory makes very high quality components. So overall, fun, challenging experience. Main downside is to a certain extent it plays itself, but then here's where we get to the next downside and the redeeming factor. The next downside is that I do feel that this is one of those games that when I play it multiple times in a row, I don't feel like I'm playing a meaningfully different experience. Yes, there are 4 different dragons to face off against. I don't know if I've strongly cared which one I'm facing off against, and also, it's only the last few minutes of the fight. The rest of the fight, you're fighting against the same cards, same principle over here, same region cards each time you go through it. So I don't feel like I'm getting a very strongly different experience when I go through this, and mostly it does feel like number crunching, in a way that is satisfying, but not variable as you go through it. So my other critique against Dragons of Etchinstone has been, well, I guess I have 2 other critiques. My other critique against Dragons of Etchinstone is that it doesn't feel significantly variable as you go through it. And then my last critique is that the various elements on the cards, I have played this game multiple times the last time, multiple times this time around. I still have no idea what the symbols mean. Every single time I'm faced with a symbol, I look it up on this. That might be me. I don't know. But I've played this game a decent amount, and I very rarely remember what a symbol is. They're all tiny and not super intuitive, so I just find that they don't ever... It's kind of like phone numbers. Sometimes you make an effort to remember a phone number, and you do. And other times you don't, and you can hear the same phone number 7,000 times, and you still have to ask for it again. I feel like that's me with these. I've never sat there and said, let me try to memorize these symbols. But despite playing it multiple times, I've never memorized the symbols. So maybe if I tried, I would get there pretty quickly. I don't know. I haven't tried. All I know is I keep this little player aid very, very handy. It makes the game very nice to have it over here. It is quick and easy to reference, but still lots of symbols, and it isn't something that's stuck in my head. And I think that was a criticism I said last time, if I recall correctly, and it's still true having gone through it now. To address those 2 things, I will say Northvale does an excellent job addressing the variety at the cost of making it more symbols and more little rules things to look up. So pros and cons we're talking about again. So what does Northvale do? Northvale introduces the concept of mages. I actually have one shuffled in here, so let's look at these. These are mages over here. They each have a different art to them, so you can see this mage is this mage, and we have that mage with a different art style. Might not come through at a glance, but, we have another one over here. So we have these 3 mages and then the one I have shuffled in. So there's 4 mages total, and you basically take their 4 cards, and they replace certain cards. It tells you on them which cards they replace. So you take 4 cards out of your 16-card deck, you replace it with 4 mages, and boom, you have a new set of cards. And more importantly, these cards have abilities that really shift up the way the game works with these little abilities. Abilities you will have to reference the rules. There's a whole rules thingy to it. We'll talk about that soon. But they really do give you kind of a different experience. Like I mentioned that going through Dragons of Etchinstone again and again kind of feels similar. Going through Dragons of Etchinstone with a different mage, you suddenly have a new challenge. In a way that the dragons don't give me that same level of variety, because again, the dragon's at the very end. Versus the mages, you're constantly seeing and interacting with those cards, so that's a really nice little treat to have that differential experience being provided by the mages. And to make it even better, the mages are meant to be balanced in the sense that they're not stronger. Some are stronger, some are worse than your regular cards, which means they're not stronger inherently. The relevance to that is you can mix in any number of mages. You can mix in 2 mages, 3 mages, all 4 mages, and every time you're going to have a different combination of experiences and abilities and powers in a way that thoroughly mixes up the experience of Dragons of Etchinstone. So the Northvale expansion, so good as far as giving you more reasons to play the game again. There's also new regions, which is nice. Again, the regions you're going to be encountering more than the dragons, so the fact that the only variety in the base game was dragons kind of felt not necessarily like a miss, because it's a very component-mindful game, but it did feel like there wasn't a ton of variety. The addition of the mages, the new regions, and yes, there's more dragons, and this time around the dragons do have more interesting abilities as well, although more iconography to look up. But overall, I think that the Northvale expansion thoroughly addresses my main complaints as far as the replayability of the game, which is great, because that was one of my big complaints around it last time. Was it just felt that once you played it a few times, you kind of seen most of what the game has to offer. The one downside of the Northvale expansion is it adds new things you have to learn and or reference. And at least so far, for me right now, I've been referencing them from the rulebook. I don't know if there will be a player aid for all the new things. I really hope they can have a player aid. I hope they have a player aid for each mage, and then a general player aid for all the symbols that you can have. Because really, referencing the rulebook is not as much fun. Referencing the player aid, as much as it is a complaint to me that you constantly have to reference these icons, it's not the biggest deal if you do have the player aid easily handy. It's really not. Like, it's like you just glance at it, you're like, oh, that's that one. Boom. Because you kind of remember the abilities after playing it. It's just that you don't necessarily immediately know which one is which. So I think as long as they can get the player aid down on the expansion content, I think my downsides of it will go down to very, very small. And my upsides will be it really gives you a lot more room to replay the base game. This is a much longer thought than I thought it would be. I thought this was going to be a very short review of like, here's my little thoughts, because I covered this already. But a lot more to go into, I guess, as far as the nuanced thoughts on it. So, where am I? Last time around, I rated this a 3.5 out of 5, and this time around, I think it's still a 3.5 out of 5 with a caveat. Last time, it was a 3.5 out of 5, sorry. Last time it was a 3.5 out of 5 that I did eventually decide not to keep because while I enjoyed the experience, there wasn't enough reasons to keep diving back into it. Versus this time around, I think, and I wasn't sure on this until the Northvale expansion. While I enjoyed it more this time, again, better art, better components, the graphic design aspect over here, much better. So overall, I did like it more already, and I enjoyed it, but I was still in the camp of, okay, great, it's a fun experience, do I need to continuously play this? The Northvale expansion does give me much more reasons to play it. I hope they can get the player rates down. That would be nice. But the sheer accessibility, the travelability of this game means this is going to be one of those games where it's easy to just grab when you know you're going to be somewhere. Like, you're going to be in a line in an amusement park. There's a handful of games you can actually play while in line for that roller coaster that takes way too long to get onto. There's only a handful of games, and usually they actually fit into your hand. That's the whole handful aspect. But games like Palm Island, they're great. Numsters from Buttonshy is great. And this is another game that very strongly fits into that category of giving you a fun little puzzle to solve when you're in situations, whether it's an airplane, whether it's an amusement park line. I think it has that extra place. Now, despite the fact that I'm not yet ready to bump it up to a 4, Northvale at least gives me more reasons to dive back into it. So a 3.5 out of 5, sorry, but a better 3.5 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, I kind of mentioned them already, but I'll go with Numsters and Palm Island. Both of those are games that you can play in the palm of your hand while giving you very different experiences than this one does. I think I definitely prefer Numsters, but honestly, all three of them will give you an interesting, puzzly experience, different in nature from each other. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.